Hello everyone, I'm Abhinav Premsekhar, Program Manager on the Microsoft Cloud for Sustainability team. And in this session, I'll be walking you through how to centralize your ESG data from disparate sources using sustainability data solutions in Fabric. First, let's see what's on the agenda today. I'll start the session by providing an overview of the different capabilities that can be deployed to streamline your ESG data ingestion process. We'll then explore the ESG data estate capability and see a demo on how to ingest and transform your ESG data. We'll also look at the environmental data and insights capability and see a demo on how Microsoft Sustainability Manager users can bring their ESG data to Fabric. We'll conclude the session with a list of resources and Q&A. Data ingestion is a critical first step in the data pipeline for an ESG data platform and involves the collection, importing, and processing of data from various sources into a centralized schema. The ESG data model, which serves as the common data estate for sustainability data solutions in Fabric, is a comprehensive and extensible analytical data model schema with over 500 tables to store your ESG data across areas such as carbon emissions, water, waste, circularity, biodiversity, social, and governance. IT administrators or data engineers can choose a set of tables from the model based on their sustainability use cases and centralize their ESG data from disparate source systems. From structured data stored in databases to unstructured data from documents or social media, the complexity and diversity of ESG data is ever increasing. Sustainability data solutions built on Microsoft Fabric enables users to leverage the rich set of data connectors available to Fabric users to integrate your organization's ESG data from a wide variety of sources. An important component of your ESG data is the reference values, which are predefined values that represent specific information in a source system, such as unit of measure, currency, greenhouse gases, energy types, and so on. Managing your reference values while unifying data from multiple source systems can be challenging. Our reference value management libraries simplify this process by providing users the ability to configure and harmonize reference values. Sustainability Data Solutions deploys pre-built notebooks and data pipelines to clean and transform your ESG data before loading them to the ESG data model schema. This ensures that the quality of the data being ingested is maintained. Once the data is transformed and ingested into the ESG data model, you can perform aggregations and generate metrics to meet analytical and reporting requirements such as the Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive or CSRD in the European Union. Microsoft Fabric provides a set of data governance capabilities to manage and protect the data through access controls, sensitivity labels, and other privacy features. This ensures that you are able to demonstrate transparency and accountability for your ESG data to stakeholders. In this session, we'll be covering two capabilities, that is, the ESG data estate and the environmental data and insights capability. The ESG data estate capability deploys all the lakehouses, data transformation notebooks, libraries, config files, demo data, and the ESG data model schema. Since it contains the lakehouses and the data model, it is a base capability and is a dependency for all the other SDSF capabilities. As a first time user, you can deploy the demo data to get acquainted with the ESG data model and quickly explore the other SDSF functionalities. The ESG data in SDSF is organized into four lakehouses. The config and demo data lakehouse stores the JSON files for ESG data model, transformation libraries, demo data files, and also the reference values and their mappings. The ingested raw data lakehouse can be used to store the raw data from your source systems before transforming them into the ESG data model schema. The processed ESG data lakehouse stores the harmonized and transformed ESG data in the standard ESG data model schema. The computed ESG metrics lakehouse stores the computed ESG metrics and the aggregated analytical datasets. Let us now look at the steps to ingest and transform your ESG data. First, identify the ESG data that you want to bring and integrate it with the Fabric lakehouse. You can either store the data in the lakehouse or store the reference to the data using shortcuts. Fabric supports local file uploads and data flows for smaller data sets and the copy tool in pipelines for large data sources. In case you want to perform complex transformations, then you can write your own custom logic using Notebook. To create the standard SDSF reference values, the capability provides a pre-built notebook called Load Reference Tables. In case you want to add new reference values, you can navigate to the config and demo data lakehouse and edit the JSON files in the reference data folder. Similarly, reference data mapping JSONs define the reference value harmonization. Enter the corresponding reference values of your source system to the mapping JSONs to configure the transformation library to perform the harmonization. Run the pre-built notebook to generate the ESG data model tables in the processed ESG data lakehouse. You can configure this notebook to generate the tables for a selected business area. In addition to the ESG data model tables, the notebook creates few intermediary tables called raw data import tables to unify the environmental measurement data. Since the raw environmental measurement data may be captured at different granularities and scenarios, these intermediary tables help simplify the transformation process. Thus, the transformation of the ESG data to ESG data model is a two-stage process. In stage 1, the data is transformed into the intermediary raw data import tables, and in stage 2, the data is transformed from the raw data import tables to the target ESG data model tables. In this demo, we'll look at how ESG data can be ingested and transformed into the ESG data model. As a prerequisite, you need to have the ESG data estate capability already deployed and have administrator privileges to the Fabric workspace. We'll start the demo by integrating the ESG source data to the ingested raw data lakehouse. Then we'll see how reference data can be deployed to the processed ESG data lakehouse. We'll also see how to configure the reference data files and mapping JSON files. In the next step, we'll create the empty ESG data model tables in the processed ESG data lakehouse. Next, we'll create a simple data flow to transform the source ESG data from the ingested raw data lakehouse to the raw data import tables in the processed ESG data lakehouse. Finally, we'll run the stage 2 transformation notebook to transform the data from the raw data import tables to the ESG data model tables. In this demo, we will look at how you can ingest ESG data from external source systems to the ESG data model using sustainability data solutions in Fabric. As a prerequisite, I have deployed the ESG data estate capability to a Fabric workspace where I have administrator privileges. I am currently at the Manage Capabilities page for Sustainability Data Solutions. I navigate to the ESG data estate capability and open the ingested raw data lakehouse. Here, we can see multiple options to integrate ESG data with the lakehouse, such as file upload, data pipeline, data flows, and shortcuts. Using any of the above methods, integrate your ESG data to the lakehouse. Once the data has successfully been integrated, I click on a table and I can see the data in a tabular format. Now, I click on the Sustainability Solutions icon and navigate back to the ESG data estate capability. Here, I click on the Load Reference Tables notebook and click Run. Once the notebook has finished executing successfully, I navigate to the processed ESG data lakehouse and verify that the reference tables have been created. To create new reference values, I navigate to the config and demo data lakehouse and click on the reference data folder to open the JSON files. Here, I can add new values and rerun the load reference tables notebook to create my new set of reference values. Next, I navigate to the mapping folder and open the JSON with the mapping values. Here, I set up values corresponding to my external source system's reference data to manage the harmonization process. Now I navigate back to the ESG data estate and select the Generate ESG Tables notebook. Here I configure the selected business area based on the set of tables that I want to generate and click Run. After the notebook successfully completes its execution, I navigate to the processed ESG data lakehouse and can see the newly created ESG data model tables. Next, I create a data flow to transform the data from the ingested raw data lakehouse to the raw data import table in the processed ESG data lakehouse. Once the data flow finishes execution, I navigate to the processed ESG data lakehouse and verify that the data has been populated in the raw data import table. Finally, to complete the stage 2 transformation, I navigate to the transform raw import ESG data to processed ESG data notebook and click run. Once the execution completes successfully, I can navigate to the target ESG data model table in the processed ESG data lakehouse and verify that my source ESG data has been successfully transformed. The environmental data and insights capability deploys the notebooks and data pipelines to transform your environmental data from Microsoft Sustainability Manager to the ESG data model. Let us look at the steps to ingest data from the Sustainability Manager. First, you need to bring the data from Sustainability Manager's Dataverse environment to your Fabric Lakehouse. This can be achieved in multiple ways. You can create a shortcut from the Fabric Lakehouse to the Dataverse environment. This creates a direct connection to allow authorized users to access the data in the Dataverse environment. You can select the list of tables for which you want the shortcuts to be created. You can also create shortcuts to multiple Dataverse environments, enabling you to bring in data from other applications. Another method is to set up an Azure Synapse Link connection from your Dataverse environment. So to set up the Azure Synapse link, you need to provide your Azure subscription and storage account details. Synapse link will then export the data from the selected tables to the Azure Data Lake storage container. You can then set up a shortcut from the Fabric Lakehouse to the Azure Data Lake storage to access the data in the Fabric Lakehouse. From the Dataverse environment, you can also configure a link to Microsoft Fabric to set up a direct connectivity between the Dataverse environment and a selected workspace in Fabric for authorized users to access data. In this method, all tables are selected by default and the shortcuts are created in a new lakehouse in the selected workspace. Once the data is available in the Fabric Lakehouse, you can run the data pipeline that was deployed by the capability to complete the data transformation process. The pipeline runs the stage 1 and stage 2 transformation notebooks to transform the data into the ESG data model. In this demo, we will take a look at how to ingest environmental data from Microsoft Sustainability Manager to Sustainability Data Solutions in Fabric using the Environmental Data and Insights capability. First, let us go through the prerequisites to keep in mind before ingesting the data. The ESG data estate capability is a dependent capability and must be pre-deployed in the same Fabric workspace. You must have Microsoft Sustainability Manager deployed to a Dataverse environment, and you must have system administrator privileges for this environment. You must also have administrator privileges for the Fabric workspace. Lastly, ensure that the link to Fabric setting is enabled for the Dataverse environment. Now, let us take a look at the steps to ingest and transform data from Microsoft Sustainability Manager. First, deploy the environmental data and insights capability. Then set up a shortcut from the Fabric environment to bring data from Dataverse. Finally, transform the data from the Sustainability Manager's data model to the ESG data model. In today's demo, we will look at how to ingest and transform environmental data from Microsoft Sustainability Manager using the Environmental Data and Insights capability. Let us start by deploying the Environmental Data and Insights capability to the Fabric workspace. I first navigate to the Manage Capabilities page under Sustainability Data Solutions. As you can see, I have already deployed the ESG data estate capability. Now, I click on the Environmental Data and Insights tile and it takes me to the home page of the capability. Next, I click on Deploy to Workspace and accept the terms and conditions to deploy the Environmental Data and Insights capability. The next step is to set up a connection between Sustainability Manager's Dataverse environment and the Sustainability Data Solutions Fabric workspace. In this demo, I will be using the shortcut to Dataverse method to ingest data to the Fabric Lakehouse. I navigate to the ingested raw data lakehouse and click on the Create Shortcut option under Get Data. Next, I select the shortcut type as Dataverse. In the wizard that opens, I select Create New Connection, enter my connection credentials to the Dataverse environment, and click Next. Please note, you must have the system administrator role for the Dataverse environment to be authorized to securely access the data. Next, I select the list of Sustainability Manager tables that I want to bring to my Fabric Lakehouse and click Next. I can now see the list of shortcuts that would be created for the tables I selected in the previous step. Click Create to complete the shortcut creation process. Please note that a suffix _partitioned gets added to all the shortcuts by default. Make sure that you remove this from all the shortcuts before moving on to the next step. Visit the Environmental Data and Insights documentation page for more information on how to rename the shortcut. The final step is to transform the data from the Sustainability Manager's data model to the ESG data model. I navigate to the Transform MSM Data to Processed ESG data pipeline in the Environmental Data and Insights capability and click Run. The transformation data pipeline contains 3 steps. The first step is inactive by default and is not required as the data has already been loaded as tables. The second step performs the stage 1 transformations from the Sustainability Manager's data model to the raw data import tables. The third and final step is the stage 2 transformation to transform data from the raw data import tables to the ESG data model tables. Once the data pipeline has successfully completed its execution, I navigate to the processed ESG data lakehouse and I can see that the Sustainability Manager's environmental data has successfully been ingested and transformed into the ESG data model. Here is a summary of what we learned in this session. We learned about the ESG data model and how we can use it to centralize our ESG data from disparate source systems. We saw how to leverage Fabric shortcuts, connectors, data flows, pipelines to integrate ESG data with lakehouses. We learned about the ESG data estate capability and saw how we could unify ESG data from multiple source systems. Last but not the least, we explored the environmental data and insights capability and saw how we can use the pre-built notebooks and data pipelines to ingest data from Microsoft Sustainability Manager. To learn more about this topic, you can use the resources shared here. Also, please feel free to share your valuable feedback using the link provided. Thank you so much for attending the session.